Hi, my name's Eon. I am an academic tutor at Magic. Magic stands for Miami Animation Gaming International Complex at Miami-Dade. If you are interested in learning more information about Magic, please check the description box below. I will be making a series of tutorial videos for Magic. Alright, let's get started. Okay, click on codeblock, file, projects, console, name your project, click on finish, and click on main. Today's tutorial is how to write C++ in code block, how to write variables and functions. Alright, so this program here is code block. Code block is where you write your C++ code, and code block will run a console to show you your code. Uh, let's go into a little bit of C++. Most reason people like to use C++ because it's fast. It allows you to communicate directly to the computer's hardware, so you have access to the memory because of C++. It's flexible. You can use different languages to write it, and you use it has objective programming in it, so that makes it kind of popular. And is well supported, mostly for games. Sometimes there's a large pool of assets available in C++ gaming program, including graphics API and 2D and 3D physics and sound. And all these pre-consistent code can be levied by C++ programming to greatly speed up the process of writing a new game. So that's why it's mostly popular uh, with game engines and stuff like Unreal. All right, so I have a C++ language written right here, and we're gonna go over the variables and functions. So, but this may look like a lot, but we'll go over each one. So when you like open up code block, it'll give you certain stuff in it already, but some of the things I already added in here. So it has include. So this is like for when you hardware writing code and making new having access to the computer and to it. And it's best to have this because sometimes it doesn't include this string, include string. So you have to put that there yourself. And you have the use namespace std. Uh, that one we're gonna come back to later. But let's get started with the main. All right, so I made some variables here, so we're gonna go over each one. So it's an int. It's a data type. So you you have to name your variables to. You got to give it a data type, give it a name, and then you got to assign it a value. So for int, it has to be a whole number. So we said score equals 100. So right now, it's storing the int of this number in this variable right here. And the next one is float distance equal 1200 f. So this indicates that it's a float. And the same thing is a data type. You have to give it a name and then you have to assign it a value. So the difference between int and a float is basically int is for whole numbers and float is for like decimal numbers. So you can be precise with the numbers. So it doesn't have to always be a whole number. And the next one is a boolean, basically true and false. So we're storing the true and false here. So we said it's true, and this is the name of the variable. We got char. So basically, it holds one character. So and to indicate that it's a character, you have to like have quotations on it. The one quotation, and another one is string. It's similar to char, but it has multiple characters, and you can like pretty much write whole sentences in a string. So I have here it says game over. You gotta indicate it with two quotation marks, and this is the variable that's holding it. So basically, variables are basically containers that holds the code. All right, so let's go to the bottom of the code line right here. See out. So let's go back to this one I talked about earlier. So basically, it's part of the library for C++. So this will allow it to us to when I make the program console show the code, executing the code, you need to like to make it appear on the console. You need to go see out with these two great I think less than. So basically that means it's an output operator. So basically that means you're saying that take this string here. This type of string is kind of hard coded, so it doesn't. It's not a really a variable. We just really root it there. But this is the variable that's holding the ones up here. That it's gonna show up in the console when we execute the code. And this too is part of the SDK. So pretty much it's pretty much keeping you from doing this because usually you would have to write this next to this. You have to write this right here each time to call on this code from the std. Basically, that's the library for the C++, and you have to put it right here as well, and you got to keep doing it. So this is like a easier way that you don't have to keep writing it. Some C++ purists will say it's best to write it. But for me, it's there, so you don't really have to write it as long as you have this. If you don't have this, it won't know what you're talking about, so you'll get an error. So always remember to have this in your code. Uh, so let's move down. So basically, these are all the variables we created, and these are the hard coded strings. So it could show up on the executed console when it we'll see this, and then we're gonna see the value for each one. So let's take a look at it. And there we go. So that's the hard code string that we wrote to show up in the console, and this is the code to represent each value that we created. Another thing is its function. Before we do that, I have to go over comments. So as you can see here, it's a line of code that we told the compiler not to ignore it. So this is one of them. So the double slash makes it that line of code is ignored by the that line of code is ignored by the compiler, so it won't show up. And there's another one, but we're gonna comment out all this code right here. So let's do that right now. Okay. So the whole line of code is commented out. So the compiler is gonna ignore it, so it won't be executed. So let's move on to functions. So there's different type of function. This one we're gonna focus on void function. So void function is a function that it doesn't return anything. So once we call it, it'll just execute it. So the way to make a function is a little different from the other like programming language. You have to create a function prototype. So you gotta like tell it what it is, a void, and you gotta say the name of it, and you gotta put parentheses and then the semicolon. And this is very important. Semicolon means like the end in the code. It's very important. Every time you finish a line of code, you gotta end it with a semicolon. Because if not, sometimes you'll get an error. So, and this is here where you you declare it, and this is where you define the function for it. So what I did was take the same variables we did up here, and notice, yeah, did the same variables from up there, bring it down here, and change the value. And that's another thing, is that you don't have to keep the same values. You can change the values of your variables, so it's not set in stone. So what I did, I put it here, and then I changed, do the exact same thing here, but this one it's gonna use the changed values, and mostly use functions to like execute code that you don't want to like keep writing over. You can just put it all in one spot and just call it all at one time. So let's give that a try. And you close it. So what happened? It's gonna execute this whole code here. That's because we called it and we ended it with a semicolon. So it's just gonna execute. Sometimes you can create a condition, then it will execute the code, but this one will just execute it. All right. So let's give that a try. Okay, it did. So it put all the values that we changed. Okay. So we're coming out this one. So the next one is an int. So this one is going to return something. So it's similar to the function, but this one it has to return something, and we're giving it parameters that you have to plug in with code with variables. Let me will show you that. So when you return something, it could be anything. It could be a boolean. It could be characters, strings. But this one we made it an int. So you got to give it a name, and we're making the parameters ints. So it's gonna take the two ints. It's gonna add it up, and we made an int here that to hold that the answer to it. We put it in answer, and you always. And this is very important. When you have return value, you have to have the end it with a return. If not, you get errors. So it's gonna take the two values. Anything that you put in the variable that's an int goes into it. It'll add it together. And it'll give you the answer that holds the answer, and it's gonna return that. And you have to do it up here. You got to give it define it. No, you declare it up here, and then you define it down here. And there's another way you can do it too. You don't have to do these two. You can just take these two and put it up here, but it has to be outside of the main of where you're calling it. It can't be inside of it. You'll get an error for that. Okay, so let's take. All right, we're taking the score, but we're taking it out, and we're gonna put the return, the return. Okay, we're gonna plug it with the score inside of it because since that's an int, and then we're gonna put a hard code value. So this is like values that you just write it in. You're not putting in a variable. So we're gonna say 5. No, let's say 50. Okay. All right. So since everything's coming out, so it will just be this line of code. It just gonna be executed. So let's have a look. And there we go. Okay. And that's it for today's tutorial. If you enjoy content like this and would like more, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you want more information about Magic or want to see more content from Magic social media, check the description box below. See you in the next tutorial.